Hello, everyone, and I'd say we did it, but more importantly, you did it, viewers. You got us to 100,000 subscribers, so it's time for 100% sunshine.
Enough with this. You guys are the real heroes. Sentimentality. No, we did everything.
Okay, so in the Muppets movie that came out in the 2010s, one of my favorite gags in that movie is they do one last show to save the theater. And at the end, it shows that they have to make, I think, like $1 million. And then someone bumps the counter and turns out, oh, they only made 100,000 cents. So I'm just imagining someone bumps our subscriber count. Oh, we only had 10,000 this whole time. They misplaced the decimal. Has anybody ever wondered what Jellyfish Island is in this random, like, corner?
We never visit these other islands.
Nope, we only go to Isle Delfino.
Yeah, we only go to Isle Delfino. We never go to Island Crab, Island Manta Ray, Island Jellyfish, Island Tortoise.
It would be cool to see that whole, like, archipelago come back in a future game, but, you know.
Do you remember when Mario Odyssey, the world map was revealed and you could see Isle Delfino?
Yeah, and everyone thought we were going there for...
Everyone was thinking we were going to get Sunshine DLC or some other thing.
They really didn't do
happened.
as much with Odyssey DLC as they could have. Oh, man, so... Ryan's playing this on the Switch port of Sunshine, which we can talk a little bit about that. But since you can actually see those background Piantas in high detail, the Pianta women look really weird at the moment.
Yeah, that Peach thinks the same thing, too. It's like, what's going on there?
Well, I mean, high detail such as it is, this is a pre-rendered video file, I'm pretty sure. So it's probably just the...
I
source
don't
video.
think it is, because it's rendering in 16:9, because that was one of the changes.
No. So often when it comes to this sort of thing, when a 4x3 game is brought into HD, is that they'll zoom in on the video and cut off the top and bottom of the video to make it fit.
You know, they did that same fucking thing in the Soul Reaver remake, even though they re-rendered the FMV. Why didn't they just re-render it in 16:9?
So it's not with the FMVs, but RE Remake, the HD remasters, did the same thing for widescreen. They cut off the top and bottom of the video.
Yeah. Well, at least in those games, you have the option to switch back to 4x3.
It's true, yeah, and that does restore the picture.
Yeah.
So
but changes were made to this version of the game and also to Galaxy and Mario 64. I know that, like, in Galaxy, they show the Switch button prompts instead of Wii button prompts and stuff like that, and refer to the differences in the motion controls and such. Oh, guys, what's that icky paint-like goop? It's moving. Oh.
I do believe that is the emotional slime from Ghostbusters 2.
You know, for some reason, people really hated the voice acting in this game, and I just don't see it. I don't, like, it's not spectacular, but it's like, it's okay.
I was like, it's not good, but I don't think it's terrible.
It's
a bit like Breath of the Wild's voice acting, and then it's badly directed in places, but otherwise okay, you know?
You know what? That's actually a really good comparison now that I think about it, because, like, I do believe this is the first game, or among the first games, where the toads talk like this. Ow. God, hurts every time.
Yeah, Mike peeked during that too.
Yeah, but yeah, no, the voice acting is more just badly directed, because it's not like this is a bad voice for Peach. You know, this is the same voice Peach would have for the next couple of years and whatnot. I think it's more just that the script is nothing special, and like you said, the direction.
Well, yeah,
is pretty damn bad.
One of the things that Breath of the Wild taught us about Nintendo and voice acting is that you know, they're bad at directing. The moment, like literally the moment that same cast got a better script and better direction, they shined. You can look at both, like, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, and Tears of the Kingdom for better voice acting. It's just generally a step up in every regard. So,
you know,
like,
it's just one of these things where that wasn't the lesson they learned at the time, and Sunshine is such a strange game in that I think calling this the most experimental Mario game would be pretty true, I would think. Like, does anybody disagree with that analysis?
Well, I mean...
Quickly, Ryan, I do appreciate you stopping there for a second. It's like, this bitch. Anyway, I'm sorry.
This cutscene's a little weird because it's the tutorial to play Flood, but in the original version, it told you what buttons to press. In this version, the buttons are obviously different, so Flood just says press the button.
Yeah, there's a clear audio cut in the voice line where they do not mention the R button.
You know, they could have just recorded a new line. It would have taken 20 seconds.
Shut your mouth.
It's a
I don't
The
know.
budget wouldn't allow
super
it.
modulated.
It's already
super modulated character voice.
It's a limited release already, Lewis. You're talking crazy.
Oh yeah,
They
there's,
could have
there's
had
no
the
way
coffee
that
guy do it.
Nintendo could somehow put this, game on some sort of service that would allow people to indefinitely access it even after the limited print run had finished. If only there was some sort of e-shop that was possible on.
You know what the fucking funny thing is? There are so many physical copies that it's super easy to get a physical copy.
Yeah, it's like a $20 game.
It's
for the record.
It's the digital version that I wish was still around. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's like, honestly, now that you say that, yeah, having these games digitally would be pretty cool if you were just in the mood to play like Galaxy. But yeah, for these 3 games, for like the $20 or $30 this collection goes for, absolutely worth it. Even though Sunshine is among the biggest mixed bags out of Nintendo's entire library.
Well, you know the thing about the physical edition, right? I originally bought the physical edition. So, of course, when I was tight on money and had to sell my Switch, guess what went with it? Yeah, my copy of this. I'm deeply regretting not buying it digitally now, because if I had bought it digitally, I would still own the fucking thing. Ugh.
Well, at least it's tied to your account until Nintendo decides to axe the accounts.
Well, yeah, but that happens
there-
a lot later than me selling the game in a fit of financial
I hope so,
peak.
anyway.
But like, okay, so like Super Mario Sunshine, I love it to death. It was my first 3D Mario game. It's honestly the game that got me into the Mario series properly, because like I had played Mario 3 latchkey in school for like 15 minutes at a time, but you know, that was like my only exposure to it because I was a Sega Genesis baby. And I didn't have a Nintendo 64, so I got to drool over magazine articles about 64, but I never got to actually play it. And then along comes the GameCube, and I'm able to get that. And in between being addicted to Super Smash Bros. Melee way too much and playing Resident Evil, I did eventually get my hands on Luigi's Mansion and Super Mario Sunshine, and both games sucked me in. I honestly didn't realize how flawed Sunshine was until years later.
It is, it's really interesting looking back, because at the time, the GameCube not launching with a marquee Mario title was considered a big deal, because at that point, every Nintendo home console had launched with a Mario game, all the way back to the NES, and the GameCube had Luigi's Mansion, which was, if you like read magazine articles at the time and whatnot, kind of considered the holdover for Sunshine. And then if you talk to the average person today, obviously the games are completely different genres, but the original Luigi's Mansion, I think, is looked upon far more positively than Mario Sunshine. Not that Mario Sunshine does have its fans, it's the black sheep of the series, but its eccentric elements do give it, its own fan base, but this game's all over the place, man.
Yeah, at the same time, though, I understand the comparisons because they're within the Mario franchise, but isn't comparing Sunshine and Luigi's Mansion apples and oranges, though?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's just that Luigi's Mansion has become this cult classic game that people look on super, super fondly, whereas Sunshine is considered, like, among the wonkiest 3D Mario games ever made,
The thing about comparing Luigi's Mansion and Super Mario Sunshine is that, like, despite the difference in genre, it is very clear that Luigi's Mansion achieved what it wanted to do better than Sunshine achieved what it wanted to do. Luigi's Mansion is super focused, super, like, polished. It's like, the design is very tight, Super Mario Sunshine, not so much. It's
I don't know. I would argue they did achieve what they wanted to do with Sunshine. It's just that I don't like the finished result.
It's hard to say because a report recently came out that Miyamoto wasn't happy with how difficult Sunshine came out to be.
I mean, this game is the hardest 3D Mario game. If we're talking about base completion,
yeah, I think we should always add the caveat. Are we talking base completion or are we talking 100%? Because to me, they're two different games.
I mean, this game's also a pain in the ass to 100% too, but I think base completion, it's the hardest. 100%, like, I guess it's technically behind, like, 3D World with its ridiculous end game level and whatnot, but it's still top 3 or 5.
One of the things that makes it the most difficult to base complete is that you have to get much further along the road to 100% completion than you would normally have to in order to base complete the game.
If you know exactly what to do, not necessarily.
Wait. What do you mean?
I mean, the game forces you to do more of the missions per level before it lets you progress.
Yeah, with the in level stuff, sure, but you need less shine sprites than you do stars to.
No, I get what Lewis is saying here, because let's take Galaxy and 64 as comparisons. In Galaxy and 64, you don't have to do any particular level to beat the game after, like, the first 30 minutes. So, like, if you're having trouble in Womp's Fortress, you can go to Jolly Roger Bay and do stuff there, or you can go and do a Star in the Conservatory, or, you know, like, Hungry Luma thing, Trace the Bunnies, slide down a slide. In Sunshine, you have to do missions 1 through 7 in every world in order to get to the final boss. So all of that extra stuff that you would do in the overworld, if you're not going for 100%
completely
completion,
useless.
And you don't, it's a waste of time, and you might not even know that you're wasting time the first time you played.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, in if this game ran by Super Mario 64 logic, all those shine sprites that you could buy from shops or find in the overworld would count toward just beating the game normally, right? They don't really count toward that here because you still have to get, like, almost all of the shine sprites you need to finish the game from the levels.
Yeah. Every shine sprite outside of the ones you get for the level completion are just for completion purposes. Yeah. Like, they do not progress.
It kind of defeats the purpose of the Power Star Shine Sprite system, to be honest.
Yes.
Because, like,
yes, you're right.
And that's the thing. That's the thing I hate about the Shine Sprites is that I wish this game was more like 64 in regards to the freedom you have and what Shine Sprites.
Aside from 1 star in Bomb's Fortress and Board the Submarine and Dire Docks in 64, you can do any star you want.
Yeah, which is like, because, I mean, when you're playing any game like this, you know, there's a certain amount of stuff at the very beginning you generally have to do, but then you get all that extra freedom afterwards. The bigger problem, too, is that, like, okay, if it were just you had to do missions 1 through 7 of every world and whatnot, like, then it just becomes a linear game, which is fine. There's plenty of really good linear games. What it does is it turns the stuff that you can find in Isle Delfino, which is an awesome hub world, and we'll get to that at some point. It changes the stuff that would be cool rewards for exploring to busy work that you don't want to actually do.
You ran ahead of fake Mario, and he wound up and stopped and waited for you. It's like, oh, bitch, get back here.
Fake Mario's like, listen, follow the fucking script.
Isn't that just, like, the best summary of the issues with this game? But, you know, I get why this game is like this, because this was peak Starbucks era. You know, everyone was renting games, and the gaming industry saw it as a threat, you know, because people aren't buying games anymore, so we have to make games longer and meatier so that people will buy them instead of renting them. And, you know, it led to a lot of awkward design decisions and a lot of games.
That's why the Disney games on Genesis and Super Nintendo are so brutally difficult.
Yeah, you can't just rent it for a weekend. You have to play the whole thing.
The GameCube at the same time, though, is, I mean, unless you guys can think of another reason or argue otherwise, is the most experimental console in town.
Yeah, it was also commercially.
Actually, I would say the Virtual Boy is the most experimental console in Nintendo.
If we're talking strictly hardware, sure. I'd be more software.
I would say it's either the GameCube or the DS. but they're both up there.
It was also commercially, though, a system that was really suffering. You know, like game.
Like from day one,
The GameCube started in a bad place and never picked up steam, unfortunately. Which is like, it's one of the best consoles. It's one of the best retro consoles out there if you're going to get it now, because there are so many great games for the goddamn thing. But at the time, it just didn't
That's what happens when you don't have a DVD player in it.
I mean, I also think a part of it, and I only say a part of it because I don't ultimately know at the end of the day, it's following the N64. And I don't think the N64 did nearly as well as, like, say, the Super Nintendo.
No, it didn't. The N64, compared to the PlayStation especially, flopped pretty hard.
There were a lot of factors that contributed to the GameCube not doing as well as the PlayStation and the Xbox. One of the big ones was not really having any big killer apps for the adult gamer audience. You know, games that are specifically, you know, made to appeal to older gamers, like your Halos and your Morrowinds and your Devil May Cry.
It wasn't long though before they got.
They also had Eternal Darkness.
I feel bad. Kind of feels like too little, too late.
Eternal Darkness is the one I was going to bring up, because that was supposed to come out way earlier than it did. The fact that it was delayed for so long pretty much killed its sales potential. It did not manage to do what they were.
The Xbox is such an interesting comparison, though, because the Xbox also started off super poorly, but that was a system that, I mean, it never stood a chance compared to the PS2, but it was able to pick up the steam that the GameCube didn't. Like, the GameCube started stronger just due to, like, the Nintendo brand being so strong, but, like, it didn't have something like Halo 2, for example, or Knights of the Old Republic that managed to bring people in, you know, a couple of years into the life cycle and kind of give the system a shot in the arm.
They managed to grab those killer apps and
the stare at the blue coin. You don't even want.
Which is not to say that GameCube didn't have its share of killer apps.
Everyone got it from Melee.
The earliest I can think of is Melee.
No, the GameCube, I don't want to talk bad about the GameCube. The GameCube has so many. The GameCube's a huge part of my childhood. It has so many awesome games.
I wanted a GameCube for Melee.
The Wii's library, to be perfectly honest.
Look. I know that the GameCube library is excellent, but the thing about the GameCube's library is it's full of excellent games for the kind of market that gamers around that time kind of saw as too childish, you know? It was that awkward era where the gaming community at large was in its teenage years, you know, insisting that stupid show they used to watch and secretly still do is too silly and childish and for them, and it's for little babies, and they want something hardcore.
I think the demographic is one aspect of it. I also think, as we've touched upon earlier, the lack of a DVD. Really harmed it too.
Yeah,
the lack of a DVD movie player specifically for that, because it does use DVDs, but it uses like mini DVDs that are like.
That
they don't count,
you can chalk that up entirely to Nintendo.
DVD. Where's the rest of you?
Nintendo needs everything to be proprietary.
Well, they were so scared of piracy.
Are
the thing,
absolute control.
So, what happened to the Dreamcast?
Oh, they still are.
I'm not really sure that they knew what they were doing when they decided making DVDs that are small but still fit in standard DVD players as an anti-piracy measure, because, you know, people can just make small mini DVDs and copy games that way.
There was a significantly easier way to pirate games on the GameCube.
Well, yeah, but, you know, it's just like the decision makes no goddamn sense.
Robbing people at knife point.
No, it's using the internet connector.
But, you know...
Oh, yeah, because the GameCube does have an internet connector that's used by, like, 6 or 7 games.
No, 2.
Is one of them Phantasy Star Online?
Yep.
I think the other one is also Phantasy Star
Technically
Online.
speaking, discounting the Dreamcast, I think maybe even the Dreamcast had something to this effect. Every console that generation had an internet capability. It was just like, because PC gaming had already been connected to the internet for years and years by then, consoles were starting to like cautiously edge into the market, you know? It wasn't really until Xbox Live that anything started to take off.
Well, Xbox was the only other console of that generation, I think, that had Ethernet capabilities built within the console. Like the Dreamcast had the 56K modem, but the PS2 required a module, as is the GameCube.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's part of why Halo 2 was able to take off the way it was, because you didn't have to buy any extra crap to do online gaming. You could just buy Halo 2 and play online. That's all you needed.
The PS2 only really took off with online gaming by way of Final Fantasy 11.
No, I played a lot of SOCOM on PS2 online.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, I don't hear people talking
so
about
it doesn't count.
I don't hear people talking about SOCOM on PlayStation 2, so, you know. There are always niche use cases and cult classic cases, but, you know, the big marketing one was Square Enix and its big brand name.
Didn't Final Fantasy 11 come out fairly late into the PS2's life cycle?
No, that was pretty early. Early 2000s. 2003, I want to say.
Oh, okay.
Final Fantasy 11 is in that era of really old MMORPG design where everything takes forever. So
well, it predates WoW, I think, right?
It predates WoW. It was around the time of EverQuest 1.
Yeah, and RuneScape was around that. Was RuneScape earlier or later?
RuneScape might have been around the same time or earlier. Yeah, RuneScape was interesting in the history of MMORPGs because it was one of those games that was so early in PC tech that they had to basically enclose the entire screen in a massive intrusive UI, specifically to minimize the amount of your screen resolution that was taken up by actual graphics. A lot of old games.
Yeah, I'm envisioning it in my head, and I'm remembering why old PC games look like garbage.
Well, yeah, stuff like Ultima Underworld and Baldur's Gate and all, they have these like big opaque user interfaces that cover half the screen, right? That's because the amount of screen those user interfaces are taking up is screen real estate that the game doesn't have to devote resources to rendering graphics in. So RuneScape was one of those. You're not going to get that experience now, even if you play old school RuneScape, because they have a nice, clean interface that lets you see the game world over your entire monitor and a nice high resolution. Back then, we had like 360 pixels wide and about the same tall.
Okay, I know we're at the very end of the video, but I gotta say, like, I know people might be like, oh my god, Ryan, why can't you make those jumps? Sunshine's controls are so weird, and it's hard to explain, but they feel, if you're used to, like, 64 or Galaxy or the 3D World games, or what, they just feel
Mario
off.
has a lot of momentum in this game.
I'm gonna, a part of it, and I say only a part because I can't categorize everything right now. Mario's default speed in Sunshine is the fastest it's ever been. He goes from standstill to max speed in like less than a second, where in 64 he had a bit of a running start to it, which is what Ryan's struggling with here. I can see it, where he slipped off the edge of the platform because he's not expecting to reach his destination as fast as he thinks he is, which is why he slips.
Yeah, 3D platformers had some issues with figuring out the perfect happy medium of analog speed control in their games, and a lot of older games kind of like are a bit overtuned or undertuned.
Which is weird because they had it pretty much right as far as the speed goes in 64.
Yeah, I would say so.
I wonder how much that is 64 just setting the baseline. For
I think it's maybe because that was their way of making up for the lack of 64 maneuvers, which is, I would argue, if you're going to take FLUDD away from me, why not just give me the 64 moveset for these levels? Because the lack of a long jump more than anything, personally speaking, hurts.
Yeah, it kind of does.
No, you fucking end the part. Tell folks to come back next time.